Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the Tinmans Quarter Channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tinman Taylor, and you probably wondered why am I wearing this Michael Myers mask and shirt. Well, today I figured I'd go ahead and rank the entire Halloween franchise for you guys. I'm probably not going to be wearing this mask the entire video because it's already starting to feel warm and hot. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the same thing like I did with the Friday the 13th franchise. I'm going to start off with the worst, in my opinion, out of all the other films, all the way up to the best. And I counted there were 13 Halloween films in total. So let's kick it off with my least favorite. And that will be Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. This is just one of those films that they should have taken more time to written a better script for, and also the mask was terrible. I agree with everybody that said that this mask looked like a cross between Nicolas Cage and an alien. But back in 1988, after they got done with Halloween 4, they figured they better kick out a sequel quick. But they should have picked out a better house to look like the Myers house from the first movie, because they picked one that looked like it came out of the Munsters. And also, I said the mask was terrible, but then the other concept that they had was thrown out the window because I heard that this movie was going to have Jamie be the killer since she got affected with the thorn curse that Michael had, and he was going to start talking and stuff, which I'm glad they did not go with that route, but you just made her like a mute at the children's hospital until later on in the film she starts talking, and they're both psychokinetic connected. I don't know how to explain that right there, but they should have taken their time to sit down and write a better script and written better characters in, because some of them are acted so dumb and not so memorable. And I hate that they killed off Rachel in this movie, because I thought she was going to survive in this one as well. Whew. I might put it back on a little bit just to talk about the Rob Zombie films, but for now, I'm taking this off. It's getting hot. Revenge of Michael Myers, more like a flop, in my opinion. But the guy that played Michael Myers in this one, Don Shanks, he did a good job. It's just the mask was not good. And the whole thing with the mysterious man in black, I was like, who in the world was this guy showing up? I mean, they never explained it, like who it was, until years later in the Curse of Michael Myers, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit later. Let me know down in the comments if this one's like your least favorite as well out of the franchise. My number 12 pick is Halloween Resurrection. Now, I could have bumped this up a little bit higher on my list because I didn't see nothing wrong with it. It was a good film. The only thing I didn't like about it was, of course, the mask. It almost looked like Michael was wearing a lot of makeup on his face. And they were trying to make the mask look like the H2O one, but nah, it didn't look like it. But besides the mask, I just didn't like the whole atmosphere of like these teens going to Myers' house to do some sort of show. And they were just going around his house to explore why he became so evil, but then he started picking them off one by one. And I think my favorite kill out of this one was where he grabbed that curly punk head dude and squeezed him. And he was the dum-dum for not running when the other guy said run. But I think the more gruesome one was where Michael picked up the tripod and killed the camera operator guy with it and stabbed him right here in the throat. The only thing I did not like about it as well was the scene where he killed Laurie in the beginning of the movie. I'm like, oh, come on. Now, I heard in some interviews she did, she was happy to chop Michael's head off in H2O, but then she got mad that they wanted to continue the franchise with him. And then so it was her idea to set her up in a mental asylum and then have her character killed off because she didn't want to be another films afterwards if they did make some more off of this, which that never happened, of course. I'm surprised Michael did not fight Busta Rhymes earlier when he was walking right behind him and Busta was wearing a economy version of his mask, and he turned around to look at him. He thought he was this cameraman guy, and he told him where his girlfriend was at. And I said that was a bad idea because he ended up killing her. But it was also kind of disrespectful that he went up there and just tapped Michael's head and said, "You don't get it? You don't take it?" I'm surprised he didn't swing the knife at him right there. Just to please him, he just turns around and walks away. But yeah, if it didn't have that MTV lifestyle thing going on in here, it would have been all right. All right, this one at my number 11 pick would be sort of like a toss-up. A lot of fans liked it, and a lot of fans disliked it. And that's Halloween Ends. Don't get me wrong, it's a cool ending to the Blumhouse trilogy, but here's the thing. One, you set up Corey Cunningham to be the next bad guy. Sure, okay, that's fine. But just to have the whole town turn against him when he was cleared was really rude. And then when he teamed up with Michael, and then later on beat him down to the ground and took his mask off, which I thought that was disrespectful. Almost like a young kid disrespecting the elder. But he just got mad that Michael was getting all the glory of being like a boogeyman because he's just a man in a mask. And he had to fight him down to the ground just to take it. I'm like, that's just wrong. And the fact that Corey not only stabbed himself in the neck and tried to grab the knife back from Michael, but then Michael ended up snapping his neck. I said, well, any future plans for him has gone downhill. Which I think originally Michael was supposed to get killed, and then Corey was supposed to be set up as the new killer. And he was going to go into another town with Allison. But then they were going to write that she was joining him. And I said, that sounds stupid. So I kind of liked how they ended it off with killing off not only Corey, but Michael at the same time. But it was gruesome just seeing Michael getting crushed in a car crusher. Oh, I mean, you saw his legs go in first, and then his whole body and head just got, and it started squirting blood. I said, yeah, there ain't no way Michael coming back from that. He's dead. But I kind of liked how they had Laurie say, evil never dies, it just changes shape, like they were hinting like, if Michael's dead, somebody else is going to step up and be the new killer. So far, that's the only beef I have with this movie, and also having not only the town turn against Corey, but also keep on saying stuff to Laurie. And I don't know why the town was believing that Michael was just a man with something wrong with his brain, like he was mentally disturbed, and Laurie picked on. That was stupid. I mean, they don't get the whole picture. But I can say this is better than Halloween 5, that's for sure. But I think I like the whole title, Ends, like they were trying to end Michael and Laurie's struggle. I think the only favorite kill scene I could pick was the one where Corey was killing the doctor because he was being one disrespectful SOB against Allison when Corey accidentally jumped and knocked over the syringe and stuff, and he started telling her to clean that stuff up like all bossy, and didn't even give her the promotion and gave that more slutty nurse that he was dating the job. But luckily Michael came in and killed her. I mean, seeing a tag team with Michael and some other guy was cool. But also I kind of dig how Corey stood up against them bullies that were picking on him, but he was using Michael's identity just to kill them for. I keep rambling about this one, so let's go to the next one I have, which is my number 10 pick. Now, a lot of people's going to not like this movie either, but I kind of dig the mask in this one better, and it's part of the Thorn trilogy. It's Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Okay, this one was kind of like a better sequel in the Thorn trilogy because they not only found a better house for the Strodes to live in that looked better for the Myers house than the one that was in 5, but the mask was decent, even though in some shots it looked bumpy. Some people described it looking more like a mask that a kid would make out of Play-Doh. I understand that, but some shots it even looked like he had pointed ears, and they nicknamed it the girl mask. Which I ain't gonna lie, it does look like that kind of. But having Paul Rudd in the franchise as Tommy Doyle was a good idea because he ain't a bad actor at all. But I'm just glad we got to see Tommy Doyle back just to confront Michael again. But the only thing I didn't like about it, because I always wondered who's the father of Jamie's baby. Turned out it was Michael. Ugh. I don't even want to know how they convinced Michael to put his stuff in her, or they waited until he was asleep. And it's gross. I mean, they just try to produce a child just so it'd be like Michael's final sacrifice. I mean, that whole plot of the story was weird. But we finally get to see the Cult of Thorn, and Tommy did some research on the Thorn symbol, and you know what it is. And I think the original title of this film was going to be called Halloween 666, The Origin of Michael Myers. And it was going to show Loomis in the nut house for a change. Michael is wandering around like a homeless man like he was in Rob Zombie's H2. And they were going to say that the Myers family was cursed ever since the day when the Pilgrims landed here in America. Which I'm glad they did not incorporate that into this movie, because they said something about it was going to involve virtual reality. I'd be like, no. That would be good for like a Halloween movie in space, like a futuristic type movie. So basically in this movie, the Strodes are living in Michael Myers' house. And Michael ends up killing Jamie, but he didn't find the baby until Tommy did. And he took him away just to be safe. One of the Strodes is named Karen Strode, and she has a son that she came back home to her parents and brother with. But her dad is still kind of like thinking that she going to college is going to make up for a bunch of mistakes. That right there, that sounds like a non-supportive dad. But anyway, her and her son run into Tommy, and then he explains everything about Michael Myers and the Cult of Thorn. But then her brother and his girlfriend gets killed in that house. And he ends up killing both her parents. And it turned out the lady that runs the boarding house that Tommy Doyle's living in is part of the cult. And we found out that the man in black was a Dr. Wynn who worked with Dr. Loomis. And Loomis is already retired. And he's just in his countryside home typing away in the typewriter until Dr. Wynn comes back to convince him to come back to Smith's Grove, and he said he don't want to practice medicine no more. And then he found out that Michael Myers is still roaming around, and that gets him into action to try to find him. But then I found out that there's 2 endings. One ending was where Tommy dressed up like a Cult of Thorn member and rescued Karen from the cult. She was on the table with the baby. And the cult leader, Wynn, gets Michael to go after them. But then Tommy learned how to do like a ritual thing where you put stones around in a circle and put like the thorn symbol on the floor in blood. Michael just walks up right to it and stops. But then later on, when Loomis goes to confront Michael, take the mask off, it was Wynn. And he passes the thorn curse onto Loomis with the tattoo. He said, "It's your game now, Loomis." And Michael's wearing Wynn's Man in Black attire and leaves. I mean, you can't control Michael. He's just pure evil, period. But I like the ending that's in this movie where they had Karen locked up in a asylum room and the baby was about to be operated on for some odd reason. I don't know why. And then Michael's just roaming around the asylum and sees Tommy and Karen and starts chasing after them. But then Michael goes nuts on all the doctors and stabs the heck out of them. And Tommy tricks Michael with a blanket holding some chemical of some sort in a syringe. And Michael thought it was the baby. When he ejects him with it, he starts beating the crap out of it, and the green ooze just starts coming all over the mask. And I was like, what on earth is that? But then later on, when they cut to where they're leaving and Loomis stays behind to take care of some business, you hear him screaming, and Michael's mask is laying on the floor. And it cuts there. I'm like, I kind of like that ending better than the whole ritual thing. But let me know down in the comments if you like this cut or the director's cut, which had the Cult of Thorns scene in it. But yeah, this one was better, like in terms of sequels. And people said that this mask should have been used in Halloween 4, and I agree. But still a cool movie, nevertheless. I like this one better than 5. All right, next is Halloween 4. The Return of Michael Myers. I like this one out of 5. Like the music, the whole fall farm type aesthetic that they have in this one. I mean, don't get me wrong, it transfers over to the 5th one as well, but it's just something about it like it was better. The story was good. The mask was, well, I would say it's not as good as the original mask, but it was better than the H5 mask. Let's put it that way. Michael's been in a coma, and he's got his bandages wrapped up. And first of all, I would like to know who in the world would have operated on his eyes, because Laurie Strode shot him in the eyes in part 2, and he's able to see and drive in part 4. But of course, he's considered as a patient or property of the state. So they took care of him while he was sleeping. But then when he's getting in the ambulance and being transferred back to Smith's Grove, the paramedics had to mention something about his niece being around, and Laurie Strode died. And that was enough to wake him up and beat the male paramedic's head against the wall of the ambulance. It caused the ambulance to wreck. And to be honest with you, I heard a lot of people said if he continued wearing that bandage mask in the film, that would have been good. And I agree. But, of course, he saw another mask that looked similar to his. He wanted to rip the bandages off and put that on to get back into his boogeyman persona, I guess. Which I didn't care. But if I had to pick a scene that would be like my favorite kill out of this movie, it would have to be the scene where Michael is still wearing his hospital garments and the bandage over his face, and he goes into the garage and kills the mechanic with what looked like a rod or some sort, just to get his coveralls and boots. I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, he is back, and he's ready to go on a killing spree again. Not only that, but I think my other favorite kill scene was where he picked up that electrician at the power plant after he didn't say nothing to him, and he said he was on the phone with the police right now. Don't you even think about leaving. And then Michael just picked him up and threw him into the electrical circuits. I would say that this is starting to grow on me now. I wasn't a huge fan of Halloween 4 or any of the Thorn trilogy, but it's starting to lighten up my mood about it, let's put it that way. But overall, it ain't a bad film, in my opinion. And I heard there were some plans about a possible sequel to this movie. I'll be down for that, just so you could erase 5, 6, and the others altogether. My number 8 pick, I'm going to slip my mask back on for this. And that's Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I didn't mind this movie at all. But I heard what went down behind the scenes with Rob and the Weinsteins, who was running the show on this movie. They wouldn't let Rob push out his creative vision, and they kept getting writers to like change some scenes that he was filming. And I didn't care much for the whole white horse thing. I mean, that was just bogus. They should have just left that out altogether. But by this point, the mask, like this one, is starting to age a little bit more after he got shot in the head by Lori. And when he's traveling around as a hobo, he ends up killing two country boys after they were picking on him, thinking that he was somebody that was trespassing on their property. I mean, he didn't mean to. He was just walking. But then once they left back to the truck, he put the mask on. I said, oh, yeah. He puts the mask on, it's killing time. But then I hate that he killed the girl that was in the truck. She didn't do nothing to him. But he didn't want no witnesses. And then the sick thing was that he actually killed their dog and ate it. Ugh. That was gross. And then later on, he ends up going to a strip club that his mom used to work at. And when he attacked the stripper there, she pulled on the mask and it revealed part of his face. I said, that's no. Michael's not supposed to show off his face at all. He's mysterious. But then, of course, like I said, the mask was starting to rot and everything, so he didn't have a choice. You just pull on it, rip. But I was also glad that Michael was carrying a Bowie knife in this film. I said, oh yeah, he could do a lot more damage with that than a kitchen knife. But I just hate to see Lori in this film struggle with her mental problems after the events of the first movie. And she starts slipping into madness and goes out drinking and partying with her friends that she works with at this record store. But then she finds out that she's Michael Myers' sister because Loomis in this film acts more like a bad guy now because he's trying to popularize on his patient by writing books about him. And she bought a copy of the book and found out that she was his sister. She lost it. And also, Danielle Harris's character, Annie Brackett, after the events of the first film, she didn't want to go partying or go out on Halloween anymore. She's more a shut-in. And then Michael found out where the sheriff lived at and killed not only a deputy that was standing guard for protection, but killed her. And boy, Sheriff Brackett in this one was really vengeful towards the end. But it was saddening just to see him like collapse down on the floor and be like, no. And they start showing montages of Danielle Harris like as a young girl. Like he's starting to reminisce. But then Loomis showed up and said that he could help him draw Michael out and get Lori out at the same time in the shed. Here is another conflict about this movie. I think the theatrical cut is supposed to have been like a year after the first movie, but this cut right here, the director's cut, it takes place in 2009, so 2 years later. But overall, it's still a good film. I know that a lot of people were trash talking this one because they said the first movie was better than this one. I get it. Sometimes sequels don't turn out the way they want them to. But I felt like if the Weinsteins just let Rob work and not kept pushing him to change some scenes, then we could have got the Halloween 2 movie that we wanted. And we probably could have got a 3 by now from his timeline. Now let's go to my number 7 pick. Halloween H2O, 20 years later. Now, what can I say about this film? I love that Jamie Lee Curtis agreed to do this back in 1998 because she found out that it was going to be 20 years after the first movie. She thought it would be a good idea to do an anniversary type movie. And she brought back John Carpenter, Deborah Hill to be a part of it. And she got like a producer's credit in this one as well, like Resurrection. But I could not believe that they went through 3 different masks on this movie. Like K&B came back to make the masks for this movie since they did the one for Halloween 5. But that one looked more like a slicker alien type mask with hardly any emotion on the face. And when they took that to the dailies, nobody didn't like it, so they had to reshoot some scenes with a retooled A6 mask, but the director was mad that they did that without consulting him. So they had to get Stan Winston to make the mask that you see right here on the cover. Barely. Which I don't have no problem with the Stan Winston mask at all. It looks better, in my opinion, than the one they started off with. And this one takes place after the events of 1 and 2, so technically 4 through 6 did not happen at all. They were trying to get rid of everything that came before it and just focus on 1 and 2. And I said, that's perfect. But if they did a sequel to Resurrection, they were going to make that movie with characters from the Thorn trilogy show up as well. So then all these films would have been tied together then, but it didn't happen that way. So now it's like, you look at the timeline, it's all over the place. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked again. I'm sorry. So basically, Laurie Strode faked her death, and she's living in California under like the witness protection program as a woman named Carrie Tate, and she has a son in this one. But she's the head mistress of this private school in California, and Michael went to Loomis's old house and found the file on her and was able to track her down and go after her again. She kept having nightmares that he would return and kept seeing him pop up right behind her, but it was just her imagination until the security guard said a mysterious truck showed up at the gate, and she knows that's Michael. He's there. But I think my favorite kill out of this one was where Michael walked up right behind Laurie's boyfriend and just stabbed him with a knife and picked him up. And I said, man, Michael's strong. But then that scene afterwards when he pulled the knife out and started following her and he stabbed the door that he saw some blood on. And she knocked him over the head with a fire extinguisher. And she got the kids out and started running. And he got up and started walking. His eyes in that mask looked menacing. Like he was a killing machine that won't stop. But a lot of people didn't like the Stan Winston mask because of that, because you could see his eyes. But yeah, it was a great film. And this, in my opinion, should have ended the franchise right here, with Michael getting his head chopped off. Studio heads were power hungry and they wanted to have a plot device for the next movie. So I get it. My number 6 pick is Halloween Kills. I thought this was a awesome sequel in the franchise. Just to see Michael more brutal and walking out of the house that Laurie was living in that was on fire. And he coming out looking all scorched. And he started going after them firefighters one by one. I was like, oh yeah, Michael ain't playing around. You hurted him by trying to burn him and shot him up multiple times. He's going back for revenge. But I didn't like the whole thing where the town was like starting to band together and start saying, evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight. I mean, okay, somebody needs to take hold of this. Because they got so crazy at the hospital that they ended up making another mental patient fall to his death. And they thought it was Michael. But I did like that scene where Laurie's daughter, Karen, in this movie, grabbed Michael's mask off and taunted him when it said, you want your mask? Come and get it. I said, oh yeah, he's going to be following somebody with it. And she led him to a trap with some of the other townspeople. And retired Sheriff Brackett said, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare, just like he said in the 78 movie. Because they went in after he put his mask on, started beating the ever-living crap out of him, and then he got up with his knife and started going to town butchering them up. I said, yeah, there ain't no way you can stop him. He's a killing tank. I think that was one of my favorite scenes out of this movie. And the scene where Michael reclaims his house back from the male couple that was living there. I said, I'm surprised somebody even bought the house if they known who lived in there before. But I was also glad that they brought in the masks from Halloween 3, the Skull Witch and the Pumpkin. But yeah, this one was really a good sequel. I wished I went to go see this one in the theaters. So out of the Blumhouse trilogy, I think this one was top, and then the Halloween 2018 ends was just like in the crapper. My next movie on the list, at my number 5 spot, is Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Now, I get it, this one got a lot of backlash too because it did not have Michael Myers in it, only in that little specific scene in the bar that Dr. Chalice is drinking at, because they were kind of considering Halloween with Michael Myers. It would have been successful if it didn't have Halloween or 3 in the title. Just call it Season of the Witch. It probably would have been good as its own standalone film. But I get what John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, and Tommy Lee Wallace wanted to do. They were trying to make an anthology off of the Halloween franchise and not make Michael the main villain of all of them. And plus, they kind of considered like, all right, they killed him in Halloween 2. They were not going to use him ever again. But little did they know, right? But I kind of like this story because it's unique. And it deals with a guy running a mask company that's into witchcraft. And he's selling the iconic Skull, Witch, and Pumpkin, which were made by Don Post Studios, as masks to be bought by children to wear on Halloween. But then when they show their commercial to announce a big giveaway, the chips in the back of the mask activate, and then they start spewing out bugs, snakes, and other stuff for like sacrifices, which sounded like a good plot twist for a Halloween movie. So imagine if Halloween 4 through the others did not have Michael Myers in it. I would like them to go back down to this route where they have new villains or new ways of killing people on Halloween, instead of having a guy in a mask doing it. And there was another rumor going around with talks of maybe possibly doing either a mini-series or more movies off of this one. I said, hey, I wouldn't mind that either. Just to see what would it have been like to continue off from this formula as an anthology instead of having Mike Myers in it all the time. Hopefully that happens, but I doubt it. I mean, it's still a classic, nevertheless. To be honest with you, out of the Halloween trio of masks, the Skull was always my number 1 favorite, then the Pumpkin, then the Witch. Just thought I'd throw that in there real quick. But also, having the guy that played the old man in RoboCop 1 and 2 being the villain was cool because he really gives off like that villainous arc, like in his face every time when he goes like this, like does a creepy smile. I think my favorite kill out of this one was the one where one of the robotic agents that works with Colonel Cochran teamed up with another one to kill that homeless man that was saying some bad stuff about him on the security cameras and just ripped his head off. But I really did not like that scene where the robot entered the hospital room and killed the guy that owned the shop with the Halloween mask for sale, trying to warn everybody about what they were doing. He walked in and covered his mouth, and when he closed his eyes, he put his fingers out and went, it ripped his skull apart. I said, oh man, that's gruesome. But that scene where they sacrificed that boy in the test room with his pumpkin mask on and had all that bugs and snakes come out of his mouth and kill his parents was really gruesome. But it was just so neat to see the mask making process in that movie, because it turns out that was actually Don Post Studios. They were just using their factory as a set location. And you get to see how the witch skull and pumpkin mask were being produced. I said that was awesome. would recommend watching it every year, even though it's not part of the Michael Myers timeline of things, you know. But that's what the fans wanted. So this one just got ignored altogether. But I still think it's cool as a standalone. All right, we're now down to my 4 picks, which are my most favorite Halloween movies in the franchise. Number 4 pick is Rob Zombie's Halloween 1. I still think Tyler Mane is one of the greatest Michael Myers actors out there. I know he was a little bit taller for the role than all the other guys, but hey, in my mind, he kind of sheltered away for taller people to play roles that were previously played by smaller actors, in my book. But he gave off a more terrifying Michael Myers persona, and especially when he pulled this mask out of the basement floor and put it on for the first time, I was like, oh, yeah, that is darn scary. You don't want to be around him on Halloween, that's for sure. And the fact that Annie Brackett, the other girl, Linda, was teasing Michael while he was standing on the other side of the road, I would have been telling them girls, do not do that, because you never know what that guy's intentions are. And sure enough, when Linda, the boyfriend, was making love in his house, he got both of them quick. And then he went back to try to kill Annie, which he failed. He killed her boyfriend, though. I kind of felt more sympathy towards this one because he's trying to reunite with his sister, even though she don't know him. I think my favorite kill out of this movie was the one where he was taunting Joe Grizzly, the big African-American dude that he took his coveralls from. Like, he's telling him he's using the bathroom, but he kept knocking on the door stall. Like, Michael can't wait. So he pulls out a little knife, and Michael got angry when he said, I'm going to cut that mask right off your face, and he just bashed him against the stall wall and stabbed with his own knife, and he took the coveralls and boots from him. But my other favorite kill scene was a little bit scarier, where the officer is at the bathroom door where Laurie and the kids are hiding, and Michael runs up right behind him and stabs him. He starts bleeding out of the mouth, and he bashes through the door to get Laurie. But overall, it was a good film, even though a lot of people did not like it because Rob Zombie likes to trailer trash everything he makes. But I did not like that whole opening scene where the mom was dating an ugly, long-haired man with broken fingers, and he's got a messed up leg, but he kept trash mouthing her and making Laurie as a baby cry. But overall, I like this movie over number 2, even though 2 was good as well. But this one, I wouldn't change nothing with this storyline. But Halloween 2, I would have changed a little bit with some of that story. Now we're down to number 3, which is the original Halloween 2. I should have put this up at number 2 spot because it's a good sequel to the original. But my number 2 spot is what I'm going to show you later. You guys probably know what it is by now since I didn't mention it as a better sequel. But it takes place right after the events of number 1. Michael goes to somebody's house to grab like a little kitchen knife. Kills the girl next door. But then he finds out that Laurie's in the hospital. So he's going to go over that way. And this is the movie that introduces the idea that Laurie and Michael were siblings. So I liked when Blumhouse did their trilogy. They kind of erased all that and be like, no, that was not her brother. That was something that people made up. Because I think John Carpenter said he hated the idea. That he wrote that down in the script to begin with. But it still made a good plot device on why Michael was chasing her. Because he killed one sister, now he was going to go kill the other one. Just so he'd be the only one left of his family. But most of the kill scenes take place in the hospital. So I would think one of my favorites was the one where the nurse was in the hot tub or therapy room with the paramedic, and he went out to go check on the temperature of the water, and Michael kills him right there without her even knowing. And then when he walks up right behind her, he puts his hand right there and she starts sucking. I was like, lady, you don't know where his hand's been. It probably got dry blood and some other diseases on it. You never know. But then she turns around after he moves his hand away from her and found out it was him, and just started dunking her face into that hot boiling water until her skin started peeling up. But I know everybody else liked that scene because you get to see her ta-ta-tas. But then there was another scene I really didn't like at all because it really made my head hurt, where Michael took a syringe, filled it up with just air, like just pulled it back, stuck it in one of the other nurse's head, and just pushed in that air. I said, yeah, that's enough to kill a brain instantly. But then also just to see the doctor with a syringe in his eyeball. Ooh. Just that scene alone just made my head and eye. Still a great sequel. Now, speaking of sequels, in my number 2 spot is the 2018 film. I thought it was better, in my opinion, Halloween 2 I just showed you. But I love the plot line of this one. Like I said earlier, you just erased the whole brother-sister connection. They recaptured Michael, put him in the asylum, and he waited 40 years just to break back out again, which I would have thought they already would have executed his butt, but no. Darn state people wanted to keep studying him until they couldn't learn from him any further. And they were going to transfer him to another facility to where he would stay there and hopefully die. But they were not going to treat him as good as Smith's Grove would have. But then he causes the bus crash, kills not only the man that was driving the vehicle that he gets away in, but also kills the son. I'm like, why'd you have to kill a kid in this one? I mean, Michael never killed kids in the movies before. This one was like, okay, yeah, they're making Michael more of a monster now. But it was also satisfying just to see him reclaim his mask. My favorite kill out of this movie was the one where Michael was hiding in the boy's closet, and when his babysitter tried to close the door and she opened it up, he just raised the knife up and stabbed her, and the boy got up and said, oh, S-H-I-T. And he just ran out that door. But he was able to grab her while she slipped on the floor and killed her. But then there was another scene where he took his new psychiatrist, which is Dr. Satane, and that guy was a creepy SOB. He seemed like a nice guy like Loomis would have been, but instead of him tracking down Michael to kill him, he was the opposite. He wanted to learn more from a mind of evil and learn how they feel after they kill somebody. I said that person should not even been attached to Michael at all, because he did the sick thing and pulling out a penknife, stabbing Deputy Hawkins with it, and put on Michael's mask to drag his body into the car. But I was glad that Michael got out of the car, dragged him out, and stomped that MFer's head down on the ground just to get rid of him, because I thought I felt no sympathy towards him at all. I thought he was going to be the more bigger pain in the butt than Michael was. But Michael woke up, put his mask back on, and got rid of him because he said he don't want nothing to do with you no more. Well, yeah, Blumhouse did a perfect job with the first 2 movies they did, but then ends kind of went off the rails a little bit. And, of course, my number 1 favorite pick is the original Halloween. You can't beat a classic right here. This is the one that started it all. It was like Trial by Fire. Sort of like an indie horror film. And I suppose at this time, John Carpenter, Deborah Hill, and Tommy Lee Wallace that were creating this movie didn't think it was going to be a huge success, but they were wrong. Michael has become one of the best movie slashers of all time. I think my favorite kill out of this one was the one where he grabs Linda's boyfriend, picks him up and stabs him with one of the kitchen knives he brought with him, and he's just hanging like this, and Michael starts doing that tilt. It was satisfying to see Loomis pull out his gun and start firing 6 shots into him. But who knew that rehauling a Captain Kirk mask would make a iconic slasher villain's face? I mean, you just see that walking around at night, it'll really chill you to the bone. All right, there's my ranking of the Halloween franchise. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more ranking videos like this. And if I do another one, I might do a ranking on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise next. This has been another successful installment of the Tinmans Core channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tinman Taylor. I say that's a wrap. Have a nice day, y'all. And happy Halloween to all of you. And enjoy watching those scary movies and eating a lot of candy.